Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Well folks, it seems as though it's already starting to backfire, at least a little bit. I'm not going to sit here and claim that Joe Biden's student loan cancellation, student loan relief isn't going to net anything positive for Democrats, because the simple fact of the matter is that many people are single issue voters, and that single issue is gimme free crap and I'll vote for ya. Of course those people exist and they're going to be more motivated to vote in the midterms than ever before. That is 100%. But just because those people exist doesn't mean the other side doesn't. You know, the same thing with the Inflation Reduction Act. Did it net Joe Biden's support, approval, votes, whatever you want to call it? Absolutely it did. Mainly with Democrat voters, young voters who were slowly falling off the Biden camp. But if you look at moderates, and especially if you look at independents, most people looked at Joe Biden's Inflation Reduction Act as inflationary, as increasing inflation, the Inflation Increasing Act. And who's to say how that's going to play out politically? I mean, the whole framing of Joe Biden's administration when it comes to legislation has been fiscal irresponsibility. And the more money that he spends, the more of your money that he continues to spend, the more irresponsible he looks. And it seems as though it's already starting. I like to call it the honeymoon period. The Inflation Reduction Act. It gets marketed in a certain way. It benefits the Democrats. But then as time starts to go by, as people start to be more informed as to what's in the actual bill, and as the results start to show themselves, which is probably going to take months if not years, then slowly people start to drop off. Now with student debt relief, it's essentially the exact same thing. I listened to Joe Biden's entire presentation, and you know what, even for a second there, especially at the start, you feel a little bit of sympathy. You kind of understand the struggle that people are going through and what he's describing. But when you take the emotions out of it and when you purely analyze the facts, the numbers, the math, it's just simply bad policy. Joe Biden's singing a tune, he's trying to target a specific emotion which lives in most people, which I understand, and yes, it does generate votes. But when you look at what he's actually doing, he's doing nothing. It's insignificant, and it's going to make the exact problem much worse than it was to begin with. I promise you, it's a band-aid solution, it's a vote buyout, and even Democrats are now starting to admit it. Let me show you guys exactly what I mean by that. Let's cover a little bit of the backlash, the backfire, and then of course let's cover why it's just bad policy. We've got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright friends, take a look at this piece right over here from the Daily Wire. Top Democrat economists blast Biden's student loan bailout, pours gasoline on the inflationary fire. Top economists who worked for former President Barack Obama slammed President Joe Biden for his plan to bail out a large number of Americans from having to pay back a substantial portion of their student loans or Pell Grants. Biden announced his plan Wednesday to make U.S. taxpayers thousands of dollars in student loans and Pell Grant recipients for those making less than $125,000 a year. Of course, we've covered all the facts here. Jason Furman, President Barack Obama's chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors, responded to the plan by writing on social media, pouring roughly $500 billion of gasoline on the inflationary fire that is already burning is reckless. Doing it while going well beyond one campaign promise, $10K of student loan relief, and breaking another, all proposals paid for, is even worse, he continued. There are a number of highly problematic impacts, including encouraging higher tuition in the future, encouraging more borrowing, and creating expectations of future debt forgiveness and more. I totally agree with this assessment. What happened just with the Inflation Reduction Act? Joe Biden subsidized the purchase of electric vehicles by $7,500. Immediately, General Motors or Ford, I forget which one it was, maybe it was all of them, increased the price of their EV vehicles by $8,500. What do you think's going to happen with tuition? I mean, tuition's a scam to begin with, especially with the most notable universities. We covered Harvard's endowment of over $50 billion in assets. And of course, we know the basic facts of tuition cost increases in general, basically since the 1980s. Take a look at this chart right over here. The dark blue line is what the tuition cost increase would look like if it just went along with inflation. And then here's the actual cost of tuition on average. It's a scam. It's a racket. Probably do here what would be maybe a little bit smarter policy is to cap tuition increases, to bring them in line with inflation so that universities can continue this predatory practice of getting people to pay absurd prices for college degrees, in many cases that are completely useless in the real world. If tuition costs were continuing at the inflation rate, the average cost of tuition would be less than $10,000 instead of $22,000. That's significant. You know what that is? That's tuition tuition relief. That's affordable college. That actually helps people. But instead, they're enabling this racket, this scam, to continue and frankly exacerbate. What's going to happen now? Colleges are going to increase their tuition. People are going to have more incentive to apply for student loans and go to these overly expensive colleges and universities because they're thinking, hey, my debt's probably going to get forgived anyways. What Joe Biden is doing is enabling a predatory tuition scam to continue, and he's using your taxpayer dollars to do it, to the tune of hundreds of billions of dollars. These universities are totally out of control and they're straight up scamming people, and now you're going to subsidize it. Joe Biden's not going to fix the problem, he's going to make it worse. And the cost of living issue, of course, is going to continue to get worse because the government is spending money that it cannot afford. That's not good policy. Oh, I'm taking $10,000 off of your student loan debts. Please vote for me, because he knows that the student loan forgiveness crowd is probably the biggest group that he's lost of the Democrat coalition. And so he's going after them and trying to motivate them to vote in 2022. It's a scam. It's a vote buyout. Except Joe Biden's not paying for it. You are. And you're definitely going to have to pay for it down the line. I mean, the simple fact of the matter is, if the federal government continues to pursue these types of policies, the only way that they could sustain these types of policies is by drastically increasing taxes. Otherwise, it's going to create debt and inflationary pressure. And there's tons of questions here as to what can possibly happen with this bad policy being pushed forward, and the Biden administration has none of the answers. Here's Karine Jean-Pierre being asked if Joe Biden's debt bailout will lead to colleges raising their tuitions.
If that's a tacit acknowledgement that yes, these policies could cause tuition rates to rise in the near future even further than they already have.
Look, this is something that Ambassador Rice talked about, as you just stated. She was asked this question a couple of times, and she said, we have to see, right? We have to see. This is something that the Department of Education is going to look into, in particular with when you talk about colleges potentially raising prices. That's something that the Department of Education is looking at and is going to crack down on.
But it seems like it's something you're preparing for, right?
Well, I mean, look, this is something that the Department of Education is aware of. This is something that we're monitoring.
They don't have the answers. What about inflation? Hey, Susan Rice, is spending hundreds of billions of dollars the government can't afford going to increase inflation? Especially since you got to print money now to pay for the thing.
Restarting paused loan repayments at around the same time as we provide targeted debt relief will not have any meaningful effect on inflation.
Well, apparently spending hundreds of billions of dollars isn't inflationary, says the Biden administration, so I guess it must be true. Here's a better question. How much is it going to cost? I mean, so far we have estimates ranging from $300 billion to almost $1 trillion. But hey, this piece of legislation comes from the Biden administration. They must know, right? It's their plan after all.
How much will this cost? How much will Americans have to pay on this price tag overall?
Well, that remains to be determined, and it will be a function of what percentage of eligible borrowers.
It remains to be determined. So they're passing this policy without even understanding the basic facts, the basic economic facts and fiscal facts of the policy they're promoting and passing. That's crazy. They don't even have the basic answers to very important questions that Americans have. And what if you worked your behind off to pay your student loans and it set you back in terms of accumulating wealth moving forward? Are you going to get a $10,000 check after paying your tuitions? Of course not. I mean, you know this is bad policy if even CNN is admitting that it's not the best use of taxpayer dollars.
Is forgiveness or extension of a moratorium on loan payments, in the simplest terms, is a good economic policy?
I think from an equity and an inflationary standpoint, it's not the best use of taxpayer dollars here. There are a lot of people who will benefit who appear to have relatively low or moderate incomes today, but will have very high expected future earnings. I mean, going to college is generally considered an investment. If you are someone like a medical resident, for example, you will benefit from this because your income is moderate today, but your future earnings are very high.
Of course it's not. It would be a whole lot smarter if taxpayer dollars were being used to make tuition cheaper, to create more educational infrastructure, I don't know, to maybe educate people, to make them understand that you don't actually need to go to university to be successful in life. But no, of course not. It's bad policy, it's inflationary, and it continues the college scam. And what it really is at the end of the day is using your money to secure Democrat votes. Even Elizabeth Warren can admit that.
Do you wonder, is this the thing? I mean, how are you feeling about the chances of the Democrats holding on to the Senate? Is this the thing? I'm liking it. I'm liking it. I'm liking it. And I'll tell you.
I mean, she is giggling. She is so happy. And she essentially says the quiet part out loud that what this really is a strategy or a plan used to obtain more votes ahead of the midterms. Fox News interviewed some people on the streets, and here were some of the responses.
You will pay for it one way or another.
National debt goes up. This is going to make it go up. We're not even going after our debt.
I pay for my student loan, and everyone else should pay for theirs too.
If you go to school, then you should probably pay for it. I did the same.
Common sense people should be able to see this, and hopefully the Democrat tactic or strategy to buy votes doesn't work as well as they're hoping. But honestly, that might be hopium, because some people, man, a good chunk of people, millions upon millions of people, are single issue voters, and that issue is give me free stuff. It's a complete disgrace. Government dependence is growing, and the American spirit of entrepreneurship and working hard and earning what you get and what you obtain in life is slowly dying, and possibly the American dream with it. Bad policy. This needs to backfire. That's what I got for you guys, though. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and if you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe to the channel if you feel like joining the community. I'm gonna get back to work. Thanks for watching, friends, and I'll see you on the next one.